Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Planning Committee, yet another Planning Committee. This is Wednesday, 1st of July. Can I start by a live streaming announcement, which many of you may have heard before. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Gravesham Borough Council's Planning Committee. I intend to go through some housekeeping matters. This meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube within 2 working days, where it can be accessed by everyone. Members, please use the microphone in front of you when talking and ensure you turn your microphone off once you finish speaking. Another member or officer will not be able to speak if your microphone is still on. Please note that the Council's visual equipment may, on some occasions, focus on or near the public gallery area. Therefore, those of you in attendance at this meeting may be filmed or recorded. Attendance at this meeting signifies your agreement to this. If, as a member of the public, you do not wish to be filmed or recorded, please inform a Council staff member in attendance and we will try to assist where reasonably possible. On hearing the fire alarm, we ask all the attendees to immediately evacuate the building. Please evacuate via the nearest fire exits and make your way to Community Square outside of the main reception doors. Thank you. So, item number 2, apologies for... No. No. No, please sit down. Thank you. I do not want any interruptions from the public gallery unless invited, please. Thank you. If you still continue talking, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. No, if you want to talk, then you must leave. It's as simple as that. Thank you. Right, I'm now going on to item number 2, which is apologies for absence.
We have received apologies for absence from Councillor Aaron Elliott, Councillor Samir Jassal, Councillor Peter Scollard. Councillors Emma Elliott, Helen Ashenden and Deborah Croxton are attending as their substitutes.
Thank you. Right, to sign the minutes of a previous meeting, which was on the 13th of May, looking around at council members, can I have your agreement to sign the minutes? Thank you. I will sign those later. Declarations of interest related to this meeting. Thank you. Councillor Wardle.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a voluntary declaration that this afternoon I received 2 unsolicited text messages from members unknown to me, and they offered me bribes in exchange for voting in a certain way. I've taken action to inform the monitoring officer, the chief executive and all other relevant officers. I want to record and to note that I am categorically not predetermined in any way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, and I very much regret that. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Chair. I have had a similar message on my phone, and this is now in the hands of the police.
Thank you. This is very regrettable, to say the least, and hopefully will be fully investigated. Right, I will now move on, if I can, to the agenda item. So number 5, to consider any items in item A of agenda should be considered in private, in part B, in public. I see no reason to move the agenda around. So that then brings us on to item 6, planning applications for determination by the committee. The first one is 6A, which is East Court Farm, Church Lane, Gravesend. Can I say how I want to proceed with this, or intend to proceed with this. We have already discussed the item. It has been introduced. We have had speakers for and against this item. We've moved to go to a site visit, and it will be the site visit and a synopsis, if you like, of the item we are discussing, but will be presented by the officer. At that point, I will invite the ward councillor and any other councillor that may want to make representations to make representations. Then it will be down to the committee to discuss the site visit and their views on this application. We will then determine the application. I think that's clear. Hopefully that's clearly understood. Thank you. So Shazad, do you want to introduce the East Court Farm Church Lane?
Thank you, Chair. This planning application is for the installation of 7-number glamping pods retreats with associated development at East Court Farm Church Lane. As you have just kindly pointed out, Chair, the application was deferred for a site inspection at the previous meeting of Planning Committee. The site inspection took place on 16th of June 2026, and the agenda provides an overview of what took place at the site inspection itself. Just for the avoidance of doubt, speakers for and against the application were heard on 13th of May 2026. This presentation provides an abridged version of the previous presentation. For clarity, please note no new information is being considered, as members only deferred the application for a site inspection. This plan indicates the red line for the planning application, as well as the other land in the ownership of the applicant, which is indicated in blue. These photos provide a visual reflection of the site currently. The access is shown in the first photo, with the following photos showing the location of the glamping pods and Finman retreats, and is provided for context. This slide shows the red line for the planning application against an aerial map for the site. The proposed site plan shows the access hatched in blue. And if I just use my marker, and that's this area here, so that's the access, with the location of the parking over here, and glamping pods to the south of the site. So those are the glamping pods there, and the location of the Finman retreats and saunas to the north of the site. So that would be over here. And just for clarity, that area in here, which is currently green, that's the location of the new woodland planting. To assist the LPA in understanding the visual impact of the proposal, the applicant has provided these artist impressions of the glamping pods and Finman retreats with sauna pods. I'll give members a few seconds to see those. As the proposed development is considered to be inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, the decision maker has to consider the harm to the Greenbelt and any other harm. In this instance, having considered the harm against the benefits of the proposal and the reality that such development can only be met in the rural area, on balance the factors weigh in favour of the proposal as set out in the report. That would be the report that was before members at the previous planning committee. Planning conditions are proposed to control the use of the site, mitigate impacts and ensure compliance with the development plan. These conditions include addressing matters set out in the slide before you and are set out in more detail in the officer report. In summary, as set out in the report, the recommendation is for delegated authority to be given to the head of planning, as set out in the slide before you and in the previous committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ask members of the committee if there's any points of clarification or information they need. Les.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, can you just noted there, you clarified that it is a Greenbelt site. So a Greenbelt site, as far as I am aware, and the law still stands on a Greenbelt site, that it shouldn't be developed unless under very special circumstances. Can you demonstrate tonight what those special circumstances are for this site, please?
Thank you, Chair. So, as set out within the report, substantial weight is given to the harm to the greenbelt and landscape character area, but that's accepted that the harm is reduced through existing or proposed landscaping and sensitive materials that offset the impact. Against that, you have to weigh the benefit. Officers consider that the benefit is substantial and that should be given substantial weight due to the increase in tourism, provision of jobs, and the boost to the rural economy. It's also worth noting that there's insufficient land within the urban area and rural settlements inset from the greenbelt to meet such needs within the borough, which is afforded moderate weight. So on balance, the factors that weigh in favour of the proposal clearly and demonstrably outweigh the harm that would be caused to the greenbelt and other harm that would result. Thank you, Chair.
Les.
Thank you. It didn't quite answer my question, but never mind. We'll get on with that. The other thing is, this site is only supposed to be a temporary site, is that right? How long is this site going to be there? Because what it says in your report, that if the applicant closes the site would have to be put back to its original state, what it's in now. Correct or not?
Correct, Chair. So the applicant has agreed that once this use ceases, they'll return the site back to its current use and its current state. So in other words, they'd remove the development that's currently on site once that ceases. However, there's no time period set for that.
Thank you, Chair. Can I come back on that? Because
Yes,
you just mentioned that there's going to be some tree planting. So when these trees are developed, does that mean to say if that site is closed down, that you're going to grub all them trees out?
No, because planting a tree wouldn't be considered as development. The development would be considered to be the glamping pods, etc. And in any case, that's mitigated for because the condition wouldn't simply allow for the applicants to go ahead with removing the development without actually submitting a material to the local planning authority to set out actually what was being removed, etc. And the LPA would then approve or not approve the works that were proposed. Thank you.
As I understand, Chair, that these trees are going to be planted for this development for the noise pollution for the neighbours. So therefore it is part of this application. So if them trees are planted for this application, then therefore if you're going to put the site back to how it was, if it ever closes down, then them trees should come out. Otherwise you're in breach of what you got in your report.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, really. If this gets the go-ahead and the glamping site goes into thick balls, and then it's put back to what it was, does that affect it being greenbelt? In as much as there's been buildings on it, so it then becomes greybelt?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of grey belt, any proposals for grey belt would need to meet the definition of grey belt set out within the MPPF and in Chapter 13, as officers have set out within the committee report, this site isn't considered to meet green belt requirements. I can't sit here today and say the policy wording around grey belt might not change in future, so it would be remiss of me to give any assurances. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Right, I see no other members of the committee seeking clarification. Therefore, Emma, sorry, thank you. You're sitting exactly in the wrong position for me.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarification. Is there meant to be a shared fire pit where these glamping pods are going? Because I read something somewhere about a fire pit.
So there is barbecue type of areas proposed as part of the Finman retreats to the south, the north of the site. So that would be allowed for.
No. No, I'm sorry. Right. Can I now ask first to? No, I'm not going to have this. I'm sorry. Can we reduce this, please? We will now. We will now Right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Again, can I apologise for what happened? It's extremely unusual. In 32 years or something as being a councillor, I've never seen anything like that in the planning committee. Can I say, but I now want to proceed, and I'd reached the point where I'd asked for the ward councillor. Ah, you were.
So, Councillor Elliott, you were asking, and I was saying it's to the north of the site, and the indication is that it's in that area there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so I'd reached a point where I was going to ask the ward councillor whether he wanted to make representation. And again, you have 5 minutes, as you know, councillor.
Thank you very much. Yes, as ward councillor, I regret what we've seen so far. Just like to make that point as ward councillor and apologise on behalf of my constituents who've been responsible for that. Having said that, I haven't been overly impressed with the way this application has been dealt with. I detect a general feeling of resentment for anybody who seems to oppose the application. There even was at one point a dispute as to whether I'm allowed to speak at this meeting if I speak at the last one. And as ward councillor, I feel very restricted in that regard. I don't profess to be a lawyer or a planning expert, just a humble local councillor trying to protect my local community from harm, that's all. The site visit looked primarily at the layout and the positioning of pods, etc., and didn't seem to me to take account of the wider relevant factors. I would have preferred viewing from adjacent properties to see how these residents would have been affected, or to give us a greater idea in that regard. And I do know that the owners of these properties would have been quite willing to give such permission, but that didn't seem to be allowed. The wider implications that I think should have been considered or that should be considered tonight, is that we already have first-hand knowledge of what is certain to happen if permission is given to this application. Not long ago, the site was of Airbnbs that was subsequently closed down with the same site and the same applicant. And at that time, the residents sustained loud late-night noise, hen parties, jacuzzis, barbecues, smoke, and so on, even quad bikes riding around. I don't wish to be a killjoy. I'm all in favour of people enjoying themselves, but glamping sites are meant for people to make noise and enjoy themselves and have drink and parties and so on. I'm not looking to prevent such sites taking place, but I think that they should be a lot more isolated than in the over the back fence of residents' gardens. I don't think due regard has been given to the close proximity of these dwellings, especially as referred to in the National Planning Policy Framework for giving exception to development on the green belt. We've made reference to all these factors, and whenever I've raised them with the planning officer, I'm told that these are dealt with by conditions that are going, or if permission is given, going to be delegated to the senior planning officer by this committee. So if there is noise, who's going to enforce any dealing with the noise? The police, they'll say it's none of their business unless a crime's being committed. Or the council, I doubt if there are enforcement officers readily available at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Smoke, light pollution, traffic problems. We can see from the site visit that there was a very narrow church lane, bendy, narrow church lane with high vegetation either side that's highly dangerous. And we see that at the bottom of the site, we have Lower Higham Road, which is undulating and bendy, very dangerous road. And people are concerned about the additional traffic volumes. I can't ever recall Kent Highways, as I've said before, objecting to any planning applications in my experience. I'm not saying it's never happened, but I can't ever recall them having any objection. So we now have a peaceful, pleasant neighbourhood that's already bedevilled by continual skip vehicles. We have the menacing threat of Eurolight that's given the business park that's already been given outline planning permission. We have the threat of the Lower Thames crossing in the not too distant future nearby. And now we have the prospect of a glamping site around these pleasant dwellings hanging over these people like this sword of Damocles. So this application, if granted, will harm the Greenbelt without any very special circumstances. This is, in my view, a matter of opinion. And in my opinion, there are no very special circumstances to grant permission on this piece of Greenbelt that I have heard referred.
Thank you, Councillor. Your light has gone red.
Okay, so I urge everybody to oppose this dreadful application. Thank you.
So thank you, Chairman. I just want to say, unrelated to this application, how regrettable it is, and join you in that two of our councillors on this committee tonight have had effective bribes put before them. It's a really sad day for democracy in this borough, and particularly to say just how regrettable and angered I am by what we've just seen in this chamber, and the children had to sit through that. It actually is the first day that I'm ashamed to be a councillor on this authority, and I just want that to be on the record. That said, turning back to the application itself, I was unable to join the committee for the site visit that took place, but I'm very grateful that Councillor Hill has invited me to join him to go out and see the area in his ward myself. I had previously visited, but I was able to see the potential site from different angles. And I just wanted to remind the committee tonight of some of the points that I raised at the last meeting when we decided, or you decided, to defer this application, because I don't believe that those issues have been addressed. Councillor Hill has rightly pointed out that this will cause significant harm for the Greenbelt. And I do not believe that the circumstances as outlined in the officer report go any way in making exceptional circumstances to justify building on our Greenbelt. The one thing that struck me when I went out and saw this site from different people's back gardens was that this is a very, very, very beautiful location that literally sits on the border of what is the urban town of Gravesend and the start of our rural communities. And therefore, I think it has far wider consequences than is outlined in this report. The final point that I would like to make, which again, I've seen no new evidence come forward justifying the very serious concerns I raised last time, was about the impact that this has on the listed status of adjacent buildings. I raised last time that when it comes to East Court, that has special listed status. And having now seen the site myself and walked around the location several times, I think it will have a hugely detrimental impact upon the listing status of those properties. And I've heard nothing new that changes me from that view. So I think the committee tonight needs to have a serious think about those points that I've raised. And I join Councillor Hills in asking the committee to reject this application tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, I've seen no, yes, Councillor Moxie.
Thank you very much, Chair. First, I want to join what Councillor Mead has said about the correspondence that some elected members have had. I hope the police investigate fully, and I think I really hope there are consequences for those that think they can intimidate members in that particular way, because it's not right and makes a mockery of the situation. I know members always come to this non-determined or non-predetermined about matters, and so they will do so fairly without any fear or favour, and will continue to do so. And I believe that of all members cross-party basis. This is quasi-judicial, and I believe they will do so and do the best thing for the borough, whatever that is, be it permit, refuse, or whatever. I also just want to hope one thing that wasn't seen, Chair, if I may. There was a young family here, a dad and two little girls in for that disturbance. I hope they're okay, and I'm sure the faults of all members are with those two little girls that ran out of this room as a result of the behaviour that you rightly, and thank you for calling out. It was the right thing to do, and I hope they're okay, and I think we all hope they're okay for having witnessed that. I just want to make a very brief general observation for members' consideration, and that's about tourism and heritage. And draw members' attention to our policy of tourism and heritage on the strategy that was agreed five years ago on a cross-party basis for tourism and heritage. And 7.92 on page 11 says this council should support a mix of quality and affordable visitor accommodation, as well as hotel development within the town centre, and also seek to address gaps in other forms of visitor accommodation, including glamping, camping and caravanning, especially where this supports other ambitions in this strategy. I give that just as generic without commenting necessarily on the application as it is. I give that, we have a really small mix of hotel overnight uses in Borough, and we have long had an ambition. Gravesham has a lot to offer, and we have very little overnight accommodation. So however it comes, we want to try and support that without making necessary comment on the application. I want to just say that we should be supporting a variety of visitor accommodation, whatever that is, without passing comment on the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, I'm now looking at members of the committee. Les, I've seen you.
Thank you, Chair. I quite agree with Councillor Mockery-Cox. We do need to mix up a bit with the camping and stuff that goes on, but it's got to be in the right place. I understand what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. Yes, we do need more of that sort of thing, but it has to be right. That's all I'd say, Chair. Thank you.
Frank. Debs.
Thank you, Chair. Just to sort of piggyback what Councillor Mockery-Cox has said, yes, my portfolio is heritage and tourism. I think we do need to try and promote heritage and tourism in the borough. I was on the site visit. From what I can remember, well, I remember the site visit. The area where at the north end of the site, the pods will actually be enclosed by existing foliage, and that will also help to buffer any sounds that might happen in that area. To the south end of the site, I noticed there was an area that was pretty run down. There was rundown buildings, there was some rubbish. I think putting in those particular pods at the south end would improve the look of the site. And typically when people go glamping, they're not coming and going, they go and stay on the site to relax and enjoy. They don't go for weeks upon end. These are short-term stays typically. They're not going to be coming and going from the site, so therefore there shouldn't be a major traffic issue only when people are coming and going. And I do know the road because I live in the area. And the number of dwellings there is quite small. It's not a huge built-up area. So I don't believe it would be a detriment to the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Milner.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I can just agree with Councillor Deborah Croxton. In my view, I think this will be an asset to the borough. It will bring people in and they can see what tourism we have in the borough, what heritage we have, what history that we have in the borough. Even if they don't leave the site, there could be leaflets from the tourist there for them to read and perhaps take away. It's to me, when I was there, it was a quiet little area, and it would be absolutely ideal for somebody to perhaps needs to get away for a weekend, just to sit and relax. and enjoy them, because let's face it, glamping is an up and coming business at the moment, isn't it? All people want to go glamping, I think it will be a good asset to the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking round. No other councillors? I was also on a site visit. I know that at committee, before we went on this visit, a lot was made about its proximity to other buildings. I thought this site was remarkably open and relatively quiet. I think the north of the site, where there will be substantial landscaping, would significantly improve the area, I think. I'm fairly certain. And to the south of the site, well, it was a pretty derelict area which would be enhanced. I can see an argument for this sort of arrangement in rural areas, because it will attract people in, it will encourage visitors, and the community could benefit. That's how I see it, and that's why I will, in all probability, well, unless I hear otherwise in the next few minutes, will be supporting the recommendation. Thank you. Any other comments?
No.
Right, can I look around members to see if anybody wants this item to be determined? Thank you. I've seen one proposal and I've seen a seconder. So shall we now put this to the vote? So the recommendation to planning committee is the head of planning is given delegated authority to issue planning permission and impose conditions and informatives that we've actually read and are familiar with. Can I ask those in favour to please indicate? Thank you. Can I look at?
Yes, that's 5 in favour and 4 against, so the motion's approved. It's carried.
Thank you. Do we need to make any more recommendations regard to this?
No, Chair, although you might want anyone who's here for this item, see if they want to leave.
Yes. So if there's anybody else concerned with this particular item, you may escape. If not, we will move on. Thank you. So we will now move on to the second item, which is 6B. They just change around the officers. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Shall we proceed? Okay. Sorry. How I need to proceed or want to proceed with this, we'll have an introduction to pre-application. We will then invite for points of clarification and information from members of a committee and then other councillors if required. And then we will go on this particular occasion to speakers, and we have no speaker for the application, but we have 3 speakers against the application. So shall we move forward, the Woodlands?
Thank you, Chair. This application, as submitted, is for alterations to existing restaurant, including alterations to elevations, additional works to accommodate plant, new bin store, replacement of a single-storey side extension, minor external works to the existing parking bays, creation of a patio, and other associated works at the Woodlands 217 Ruton Road. This is the site location plan. The site is accessed directly from Ruton Road, sharing an access with the hotel to the west of the site. To the north and the east, the area is highly residential. To the south, there is a public park. Here are some photos taken on the 18th of March of this year. The top left image shows the frontage of the building as visible from the street. The top right image shows the rear of the building. The bottom left shows the existing parking area to the front, and the bottom right shows the south side elevation where the existing refuse store is located. This is an aerial view of the site for additional context. This is the proposed site plan. In terms of building footprint, it would be relatively unchanged. There would be a replacement single-storey element to the north side and with a like-for-like footprint. The refuse store to the south would be in the same position as the existing refuse area. The car park would undergo alterations, removing the existing free car parking spaces to the southern end and placing them to the north end of the site to allow for a more appropriate stopping point for goods deliveries. 2 disabled spaces would also be located closer to the store entrance. The patio to the front would also be extended with the rear patio removed and the footpath to the rear provided to provide access. A cycle store would also be introduced. This is the proposed front elevation. Here you can see the refuse store to the left side and the replacement single-storey extension to the right side. There would also be alterations to the fenestration, including relocation of the entrance to the main facade of the building. This is the proposed rear elevation. Again, you can see the replacement side extension, bin store, and alterations to openings, including the introduction of a rear entrance door specifically for deliveries. In addition, the acoustic fencing atop the flat roof is shown to mitigate impacts from the proposed additional plant in this location. This would replace the existing safety railing. And this is the side elevation to the north of the site. Here we see another view of the replacement flat roof extension and altered openings. We can also see again the acoustic fencing to the right of the image, encompassing the top of the existing rear flat roof. This is the side elevation to the south of the site. Here we see the refuse store and part of the acoustic fencing proposed above the rear extension. The replacement side extension, refuse store, roof plan and acoustic fencing, as well as the layout changes to the car park area and patio and fenestration, are considered to be acceptable in terms of design. A noise impact assessment was submitted. This assessment is considered acceptable with acoustic fencing installed to mitigate the plant noise. An odour assessment was submitted and the environmental protection team found this to be wholly acceptable in appropriately mitigating the impacts of fumes from the kitchen use. KCC Highways have set out that they find the scheme to be acceptable, although their preference would be for the existing bays to be increased from the existing 4 metre length to 5 metres in length. However, the existing bays are not within the red line. KCC Ecology have commented, advising that further information would be needed to determine the impact on ecology and biodiversity. The application form indicates an area of 0.4 hectares, but the B&G metric indicates an area of 0.17 hectares. Independent review of the site area confirms that it is indeed 0.17 hectares, which would match the B&G information submitted. Based on this area, their 10% B&G requirement would be compliant. However, given that there would be partial demolition of the building, that the building has characteristics which could lend itself to roosting of bats, a preliminary roost assessment is required before the impact of the scheme on bats can be fully understood and subsequently mitigated if necessary. The applicant has submitted additional information in relation to bats today. However, this information has not been accepted by the LPA at this late stage.
Thank you, Lisa. Whilst the applicant has sought planning permission for operational development only, with development defined in Section 55 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, as set out in the slide before you, when assessing the application, the LPA can, as a matter of fact and degree, consider whether or not the description of development is correct and whether in fact the application results in a change of use. It is not disputed that the Woodlands restaurant has lawful restaurant use. It is also not disputed that case law clearly sets out that the details of the applicant are not a material consideration in decision making. However, as it is considered that the development does result in a change of use to a mixed-use restaurant and takeaway, this engages paragraph 97 of the framework. In order to fully consider the implications of the proposal in respect of paragraph 97, it is not possible to divorce the applicant from how the business hosted at the Woodlands would operate. In considering the business model and operations that would take place, it is clear that the proposal would not promote healthy eating and is in an area where obesity is an issue. The site is also not within the town centre, but is within walking distance of two schools and Woodlands Park, where young people and children congregate. Having considered the proposal in the round, the recommendation before members today is for the application to be delegated to the Head of Planning for refusal, for the reasons as detailed in the supplementary agenda and on the screen before you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm looking at members of the committee. Any points of clarification or information? No, I'm looking at other members. Sorry. Yes, I've seen Cox and then Councillor Mead.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Just on the point of clarification, first of all, only MPPF paragraph 97 is considered for reasons of refusal. Can I ask whether paragraph 96 and 98 have also been considered for reasons of refusal, which is access to healthy food and health policies as well? Because it seems if it's one reliance on just one, my question is, should it not also rely maybe on 96 and 98 to therefore make recommendations stronger in the round?
No.
Thank you, Chair. So paragraph 98 relates to the provision of social, recreational and cultural facilities and services to the community needs, and it effectively talks about how planning policies and decisions should be exercised in that fashion. Our view was that that doesn't apply to 98, and paragraph 97A is the most applicable to this particular site. Paragraph 96 relates to policies and decisions should aim to achieve healthy, inclusive and safe places. The reality is, whilst yes, I agree that the proposal potentially doesn't enable and support healthy lives by promoting good health, that is encompassed within paragraph 97. As such, the most relevant paragraph in our view is 97 and subsection A, not paragraph 96. But that's our professional opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Chairman. In reading through the application documents and the officer report for this application, for me there was one critical point, and that was that the officer report stated that when it comes to the delivery side of the business versus that of the actual sit-down restaurant provision, that several times the applicant was asked to provide additional data or numerics to say how much they expected in terms of delivery versus sit down. The officer report states that no such information was received. We've heard tonight that additional information was received at a late stage involving bats, which has not been accepted, rightly so, but it's just to seek clarity that no further information has been received on that particular issue.
Correct, Chair. No additional information has been provided on that issue. And just to clarify the applicant's position is that the planning committee can't, the local planning authority shouldn't be considering a change of use, and the focus should only be on the operational development alone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to the public speakers. So we'll take the first against the application, which is Speaker A, who is the local resident. I believe will speak via microphone. And if I could ask, while that's being arranged, that we will be determined by the lights. You have 3 minutes. When the light turns from green to amber, you have 1 minute left. When it turns to red, you must stop. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. The applicant would have members believe that this is a simple, harmless swap from one Class E restaurant to another. It isn't. The previous Beefeater at the Woodlands was a traditional family restaurant with over 150 covers and no delivery operation whatsoever. I asked the members to look carefully at the submitted plans. They reveal a substantial intensification of the building's infrastructure and operation. The ground floor is being reconfigured around an oversized commercial kitchen, courier loading tables, separate courier entrance and McDelivery counters. This layout is clearly designed to supply a continuous flow of digital orders from Uber Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo and the applicant's own brand, McDelivery. Upstairs, the first floor once housed a large function room with guest facilities. The plans now reveal this entire hospitality space is being completely sacrificed to build an industrial-grade mechanical plant room full of ductwork. By replacing customer hospitality areas with industrial infrastructure, is this still a restaurant? A high-velocity development of this type does not belong bordering a 14-acre public park where children play and exercise. It does not belong in a residential area less than 30 metres from where children sleep, and it certainly doesn't belong 400 metres from the gates of St George's School and its 1,500 pupils. This hub will draw children towards unhealthy choices daily. Gravesham faces a childhood obesity crisis, with 40% of Year 6 children overweight or obese, and in the Woodlands ward, this figure is even higher. Furthermore, this site sits in a legally designated air quality management area, an AQMA, yet the developer wants to introduce an endless stream of idling courier cards and mopeds, worsening the air that children breathe. The sensitivity of this location led the Environmental Law Foundation to review the application. Their formal legal guidance, reviewed by a planning barrister at No. 5 Chambers, confirms this application stands in conflict with paragraph 97 of the NNPPF. The applicant says this is simply one restaurant replacing another. Their own plans prove otherwise. Please support the planning officer's robust recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can you keep your microphone for a minute? Are there any questions from members of the committee? No, any other member? Thank you very much. We will now move to the second speaker against the application, who's Simon Murphy, Executive Head Teacher, St George's School. If you'd like to take a seat, again, be guided by the lights. You have 3 minutes. When you move to amber, you've got 1 minute, and then when you move to red, you must stop. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman. And as Executive Head Teacher at St George's Church of England School, I'm responsible, of course, for the education of 1,650 pupils aged 4 to 18. On behalf of my school community and the local community, I'm also urging you to refuse this application. St George's is located a 2 to 3 minute walk from the proposed McDonald's site. Hundreds of our pupils pass this location every single day, and many of our older pupils are permitted to leave the school site at lunchtime. My principal concern is that this proposal conflicts with the aims of paragraph 97. It states that planning decisions should promote healthy, inclusive and safe spaces and should enable and support healthy lifestyles, especially, as we've heard, where this would address identified local health needs. We work tirelessly to promote healthy eating, physical well-being and positive choices in school. We invest significant amount of time and resource to this, educating pupils about nutrition, healthy lifestyles and locating a major fast food outlet within such close proximity to a large all-through school would directly undermine our efforts and, in my view, runs contrary to the objectives within the framework. Indeed, the direction of national policy, in my view, could not be clearer. The Department for Education is currently strengthening food standards guidance across England with new requirements for us to improve children's nutrition, reduce sugar, unhealthy foods. These reforms reflect the government's recognition that childhood obesity and poor diet remain significant public health challenges. So as schools, we're being asked to do more than ever to promote healthy lifestyles, and I simply cannot reconcile the approval of a fast food restaurant within a 2-minute walk of our school with the objectives of paragraph 97. Surely it seems contradictory for schools to be held increasingly responsible and accountable for promoting healthy eating and tackling childhood obesity, whilst planning decisions could simultaneously increase young people's access to unhealthy food immediately, frankly, outside our school gates. I think there are wider concerns. I think the site is likely to attract significant numbers of young people before school, after school, during lunchtimes, and has the potential to raise levels of antisocial behaviour, perhaps, but certainly congregation of groups and those from other schools. Also, these are matters that my colleagues work hard to manage and which this development is likely to, frankly, exacerbate. In reaching your decision, I respectfully ask that you give significant weight to the health well-being of Gravesham children and the safety objectives set out in paragraph 97. I find that they are at odds. This planning application is at odds, of course, with the objectives. So on behalf of the community and the children I serve, I urge you to object.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just one quick question. You're the head of the school, and I take it that you're fearful that some of your pupils do have allergies.
Absolutely growing concern. New guidance also coming in this September around allergies for us. And again, we're working so hard in schools to make sure that we cope with that. Growing numbers of pupils with allergies. A growing school, the school will end up 1,750 to 1,800, depending on sixth form numbers. So absolutely, yes.
Thank you, Chair. That's why I asked that question, to make it clear to the committee that there is a growing concern about these allergies and this sort of...
Thank you, Councillor.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Further questions? I'm looking across. I've seen Councillor Bird and then Councillor Muckley.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested in the fact that as the executive head of the school, you're being given guidance on food and feeding of the children. And you're saying that the food in a fast food establishment such as McDonald's wouldn't comply with the government guidance you're having now to comply with. Would you like to expand on that a little bit further so that we can actually, because clause 97 is quite a key one, and it goes to the heart of what's good, healthy food and what's not. So if you're now promoting good, healthy food, then
obviously the reverse of that is what we've got to oppose.
So absolutely, without going into too much detail, but perhaps giving some examples about foods such as processed foods, processed meats in particular, and the amount of times that those are allowed across a weekly timetable, if you like, if that's the wrong, the menu within school are hugely reduced. Likewise, sweet, sugary desserts hugely reduced. Even the type of bread as a third example, the bread products and the reduction needed in the sugar content of that bread products, and that's coming in for primary age pupils in September 26, so in a couple of months' time, and then secondary September 27. So huge amount of work for us once again, which actually we will do, of course, and it's right that we do, given what I'd said earlier about perhaps childhood obesity and a national health crisis there. But yeah, I would suggest very respectfully to everybody that McDonald's is the opposite end of that spectrum.
Councillor Mockley-Cox.
Thank you. I declare my interest as a former student at St George's, and you're the executive head, Simon, but Steve Carey was my PE teacher. That's how long he's been there. I just want to talk of being a former pupil there and knowing how many people walk and park and walk and take the car and that. Can you just comment on the travel plan element of it? Because I think McDonald's argument, ironically, is there's no traffic management issues because everyone's going to walk there, which then it's called counterintuitive, because if everyone's going to walk there, that means their customer place is close by. So can you just confirm that actually, according to your own, if I've got this right, your own school traffic plan, at least 59% of your pupils walk, therefore meaning they would access this in a quick fashion, should we say, rather than coming from further abroad?
Well, that's absolutely right. And part of the vision of the school is we serve our local community, local to the school, local to Gravesend and Gravesham. And we do a really good job in that. So you're absolutely right with that high figure of those that walk or indeed cycle. And I genuinely walked it this morning from our school gate. It sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not. And 2.5 minutes I was outside the Woodlands, the former Woodlands pub and hotel there. So yeah, absolutely agree with what you've said there. And Steve Carey's still the big boss of the trust, by the way.
Councillor Mead.
Sir, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for being such a powerful advocate for young people in this borough tonight. My question to you is that we know that with fast food takeaways, particularly in the town centre, unfortunately, they have over the years served to create pockets of antisocial behaviour. They've further, in the case of several in our town centre, been the epicentre of incidents of disorder. And we also know that not all delivery drivers of some of these online establishments commit to carrying out their legal checks on drivers when it comes to the use of illegal mopeds and these super fast scooters. Does that concern you as well as the executive head, that actually your children could, and the young people at St George's could be put at increased risk by those two elements?
It concerns me greatly. And if I'd have had more than 3 minutes, I would have absolutely talked more about safeguarding and the fact that that is a main road, as far as I'm concerned, Rootham Road. Lots of traffic all day, every day, particularly at crucial times. And I'm going to suggest to the chair and the panel as well, particularly at times when schools are when the pupils are leaving school for the day and arriving at school for the day. We're not the only school in that local area, of course, and Rootham Road serves a number of other roads that absolutely lead, particularly to primary schools in the area. So always concerned about safeguarding is the truth of it. I would be more concerned were there a McDonald's restaurant within 2 minutes of my school.
Thank you. I'm looking around. I see nobody else. So many thanks, Mr. Murphy, for your contribution. That brings us on to our third speaker, which against the application, Bursin Sully. Sally, I apologise, I'm not there. Please do take seats. Thank you. You'll be familiar with the process now. 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a PE teacher, so we use our voice all the time. I'm just going to kind of read through what I wrote down initially in response, but after hearing some facts, I've got some things to add. So from Appendix 1, the neighbour consultation responses, there were 492 comments received, 480 of those are objections, and 11 were in support. So if I know anything about democracy, if that is what we are trying to promote as a society, that number, you don't need to be a mathematician or a maths teacher to be in line with that. So I was astonished to hear of this news and strongly object to such works and the idea of living opposite a McDonald's restaurant. I believe even associating the word restaurant with such an abysmal establishment is slightly degrading, if I'm honest. My father had 3 restaurants when I was growing up, and he definitely produced really high level quality food, freshly produced on site every day, and served food to the public for maybe 25 years till 3 a.m. in the morning. So I'd like to think I know a little bit about the catering business. The points that I would like to be considered are as follows. It might echo some of the others as well, but it just adds to the validity of their points. I've said, do we need a McDonald's for the 3rd time in Gravesham, Gravesend? I only already live 0.8 miles away from the local establishment in town. And in the planning images, my house is actually seen in those images. So I live on Pinnock's Avenue, sorry, just off of Rootham Road. And I believe that it would be really detrimental to the area. Why ruin one of the nicest parks and offer such a poor nutritional option for our community? If there is a need of catering options, wouldn't a better option be possible? Something like a Leon establishment. Our local one is in Bluewater, which I believe is too far away. When we're looking at young people, I've got 2 young children myself, 4 and 6, and what is their Happy Meal is fully baked. There is no fried goods on site, and that full meal with peas, tomatoes, baked chicken goujons or breast with rice or something of that ilk would probably fit better. I fear that, like the McDonald's in Gravesend Town Centre, there will be an increase in antisocial behaviour with the need of security presence. So looking at what has been said, I believe that would go under paragraph 96 under the Safety Act. As most of you would know, going to the town centre past 8 o'clock, there is definitely security guards present at the McDonald's. So if there were no safety issues, why would there be security on site? The environmental impact of the works themselves and the unwanted fumes of the poor quality goods.
Thank you.
Oh, wow, that was quick. Sorry.
Apologies. Please, can you sit back down for a minute? You don't get away that easily. Any questions? Well, clearly you do get away that easily. Well done. Thank you very much. Right. I will now turn over to the ward councillors. Does anybody wish to make a contribution as a ward councillor? Again, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I am Councillor Alan Metcalfe, Woodlands Ward, and tonight I'm speaking also on behalf of Ben Sizer, who can't be here, unfortunately. Over the past few months, we have been working on a consistently, and we would both like to recall our thanks to the hundreds of neighbours and residents who have been in touch with us over raising their concerns. 500 comments and 480 objections. The numbers speak for themselves. I am hoping that committee members will listen to our residents and do the right thing. In rejecting this application, in line with the officer's views, the first point I need to make is that it's not just a refurbishment of an old restaurant. what is the application is proposed is the mixed restaurant and takeaway operation, along with associated alternatives, laying changes and arrangements that leave me to no doubt that there will be wanting a significant takeaway and delivery service, because that's the nature of their business. This is highly residential area and a busy road, and last thing any of us want to see is illegal bikes and scooters associated with food chains speeding out of the place in ugly, gaudy hours, because it's proposed to be till 11 o'clock at night. When this road goes to standstill conditions at the rush hour, in the many conversations that Ben and I have had with our residents, the message is clear that this is the wrong place to fast food restaurant. If permitted, their site would bring more comings and goings and would see more noise and greater risk of lesser and distributing our residents deserve for this council to protect them from this. The application was asked to provide evidence showing the likely spirit between eating customs and takeaway or delivery. They failed to give that notice, so we don't know what's going to happen in the sense of whether it's takeaway or whether it's sit down. They refused to provide that information. That to me says it all. That brings us to the National Planning Policy. The National Planning Policy framework at section 97A says that hot food takeaway and fast food outlets should be refused where they are within walking distance of schools, which you've just heard from the gentleman over there. Where children and young people gather unless they are in a designated town centre. This site is not a town centre. It is walking distance of St George's School and Cecil Road Primary School. It is also directly next to Woodlands Park, which is used every day by children and people and families. So councillors have the ground to reject on a non-compliance of national planning policy. This matters most importantly, Chair, because Gravesham already has serious public health charges, and 69.7% of adults were being overweight, and some 40% of the year, 6 children being overweight. These figures are worse than regional and national averages permitted with the application to be made the situation worse. I also want to speak to someone who is highly local and site and knows the area well from my own experience. Woodlands Park already has several issues with littering and antisocial behaviour. We see it, hear it, and we live it all the time. Putting the major fast food takeaway and delivery operation next to the park is only going to make these existing problems worse. We have seen now how when this gets out of control and other fast food establishments in the town impact that is on a community. Now stop the imaging that in the residential area and unacceptable. The council owns waste teams have rightly issued concern potential increase in litter because of takeaway use of the approximate to the car park. The complete reflective, sorry about this, that reflects the underlining that my local residents are worried about. For all of the reasons I've set out, this is the...
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Questions? Looking around, no. I've seen Councillor Mockery-Cox and then Councillor Mead.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'd like to also thank the residents for communicating with me as Cabinet Member for Planning. It's borders my ward on Cold Harbour Perry Street while in Woodlands, but I had several residents contact me separately. And one of the joys of being in this position, along with the leader, it means I can't be on planning committee, so we can say and object as much as I like. Several reasons for the objections. I want to bat away something that's really important, Chair. There was some lovely social media commentary. The Gravesham Borough Council were informed of this application in advance. We've been working with people. It is utter rubbish, and we only found out about this when they submitted the planning application. They refused to engage. We have pre-planning applications. We have a range of things to engage with planning officers. They refused to engage. When the planning application came in, Chair, was the first time they formally told anyone in this authority that was there. So no elected member, no officer was formally engaged with at all. And it's a myth that I think is worth busting, Chair, because we should have any development and should engage with local residents earlier and the authority. They chose not to do so. So I think that just has a bit of contempt for local residents in that regard. I object on similar to what the refusal recommendation is. Paragraph 97 says we should refuse for walking distance of schools or in any locations where evidence of concentration of where people congregate. Woodlands Park, St George's, and even Cecil Road in my ward is all within walking distance of this facility, and the sort of town centre exemption that applies to fast food restaurants does not apply and would not apply here. As I said, I was a former student at St George's. I know how close to Woodlands is. It's about 2.5 minutes, as was rightly said, although you could run it a little quicker, sir, if I may say so. I have made the point earlier that 96 and 98 health policies could apply on the MPPF as well. I think that's important. But one thing that's really not emphasised enough is this is a material change of use. McDonald's are going to continually argue that this is not a change of use. It is clearly a change of use. From anyone that knew the Beefeater restaurant, it was exactly that, a restaurant. And I agree with the comment that if McDonald's are claiming to be a restaurant, I think they're a few pennies short of a pound in that assertion. I've made a point about traffic management as well. The irony here is that if McDonald's think their customer base will walk, then it falls foul of the MPPF. But if they think everyone's going to drive there, and delivery driver traffic has been mentioned, there is we've seen in the town, we've seen the other McDonald's, there is increased traffic usage and the idling. And I think to sort of claim it's not going to be, I think, for the birds, it will clearly have additional traffic issues. It will clearly then impact on air quality. It will clearly impact on noise and light and litter as well. The MP for Gravesham had a meeting with McDonald's, and they tried to claim in that meeting, I've got the notes here from that meeting, where they would say the business rates that they would pay would help pay for the clearing up of the litter. We've done some maths here. We get 40% of those business rates, not the full amount. So that works out to be about £22,000 a year. So I've got a really simple question for McDonald's if you're watching, a really simple question. If the litter picking costs more than £22,000, who do we send the invoice to? We are going to be, I have asked officers to identify and itemise how much it costs us. So we'll happily send the invoice if you think your business rates are going to cover, because I don't think they necessarily will. It will have an impact on the local area, the impact on residential amenity. Apparently, they say they're going to pick like litter picks 3 times a day, 150 metres or more if agreed. Well, we've got 2 McDonald's and I don't see that. So it'd be really interesting to know when they're going to start in the 2 Gravesend sites, let alone the sites that they're planning for here. I think it should be refused. It's interesting to note we've worked cross-party on this. I've worked with colleagues in Woodlands Ward and that lot. So there have been a cross-party condemnation of this application. I'm glad it's come to this committee. I'm glad it's been called in jointly by several members here. I'm glad this recommendation is refused, and I implore that everyone does recommend it. And frankly, if it goes to appeal, we'll defend hopefully the decision where it says this does not belong in this site. I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry? I've seen Councillor Mead, then Councillor Beattie.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. And when I started to speak on the last application, I said that in the near 12 years that I've had the honour of serving on this local authority, that I was ashamed to be here tonight, and that was the first time. Well, thank you to the residents of Woodland Ward for restoring my faith in our local democracy, because I commend all of the speakers that we've had this evening for the way that you've conducted yourself properly and been powerful advocates for your community here, but not only just those of you that spoke, because I know many of you have been meeting for months and months to determine how you should approach this collectively. I also want to thank all of our ward councillors for the work that they've been doing, most of which has been behind the scenes, dealing with what has been a real marathon, I think it's fair to say, of calls and emails. And I certainly haven't kept up as well as they have. And I'd like to thank the residents that have also reached out to me, even though I no longer represent Woodlands Ward. I completely agree with everything that the councillors either side of me have said this evening. They have set out very clearly the strength of local feeling and the severe impact that this application, if permitted, would have on Woodlands Ward, and the real concerns that local residents have rightly raised about increases in litter, disturbance, antisocial behaviour, the very serious concern that the executive head teacher raised about safeguarding and indeed the health of our borough's young people, and the effect that, if permitted, this application would have on our incredible asset of Woodlands Park, which I don't think we all give enough appreciation to, just how lucky we are to have such a grand space in the middle of a highly urban area. I do not want to repeat the points that the councillors, members of the public have repeated this evening, because I just want to highlight a few of the planning issues that are before members tonight, because in my view, as set out in the officer report, the legal and technical grounds, which are the material planning considerations for refusal, are crystal clear. The applicant says that this refurbishment is simply a rebranding of the existing restaurant. We know for a fact that it is not. My interpretation of the documents that I've read tell a very different and a very troublesome story. We have a new formalised delivery area. We have extended footpaths to the rear doors for food delivery collection. We have increased plant infrastructure. We have operational changes which, if taken together, all point to something materially different from what was the old Beefeater restaurant. And I think members tonight, when voting on this, need to realise and understand, Chairman, that this is not simply a restaurant with a small takeaway on the side. We know that the nature of the proposed establishment is about rapid takeaways and deliveries. And I share Councillor Metcalfe's worry as to why this applicant has decided repeatedly not to give the members of this committee the evidence that they need to show that this would be simply an eating restaurant more than it would be a delivery. And I also think it's regrettable that there was no one here tonight to speak in favour of the application that we've put forward. But again, that's entirely their choice. And I believe all of that should add up and speak for itself, because it's regrettable that tonight, as planning committee members, you're effectively being asked, due to the lack of data that you've been given so far, to sign a blank cheque in planning terms, which again, I think is highly regrettable and unacceptable. I'd also like to speak directly to paragraph 97A of the National Planning Policy Framework, because as we've heard multiple times tonight, but this point is worth repeating, that we as the local planning authority should refuse hot food takeaways and fast food outlets that are within walking distance of schools and other places where children and young people congregate. This site fails that test, absolutely. As we've heard, it's within walking distance of St George's Church of England School and also Cecil Road. It is also immediately next to Woodlands Park, which plainly is a place that every single day children, young people and their families congregate. Young people have football lessons and socialise. This is not a marginal case. There is no reason at all for members tonight to have any scepticism that the National Planning Policy Framework is clearly on your side in rejecting this application. The applicant could have helped this committee tonight in terms of providing clearer evidence on that split between the food takeaways, and again, we don't have that, and the officer report makes it clear as to why, again, it could be rejected on that basis. Our officers have made it very, very clear that the absence of evidence allows you to reach a sound planning conclusion tonight that the takeaway amenity to this site is not merely auxiliary. To deviate from this officer recommendation tonight would be to say that this council is willing to go against National Planning Policy Framework which I hope you don't do, because it would be highly regrettable. The policy of trying to protect children is not just national, because I remember that when I was a cabinet member back in 2015, we had discussions around fast food provision within Woodlands Park, because we had a number of burger vans, I think they were from memory at the time, trying to approach the council to ask if they could pitch up for the summer in the park. And on a cross-party basis, it's always been the policy of this council not to permit them on our parks and open spaces, for the very reason that, very much like the executive head teacher said, we too have a duty to protect the health interests of young people in this borough. So when the national policy chairman says that we should refuse hot food takeaways near schools and young places where young people gather, it's not merely just an abstract policy point. It is directly relevant to the public health circumstances of this borough. Now, growing up, my grandparents lived in Hillingdon Road, so naturally the park was my second home. It's where I learnt to ride a bike. It's where I sat with my grandfather for hours and hours as he told me the other fascinating thing about Woodlands Park, and that's that it contains one of our borough's best kept secrets, which is our heritage asset, being the Cold War bunkers. And what concerns me about the application that we have tonight is obviously to get to the bunkers, there's a big well and a staircase going down. As Councillor Mockery-Cox rightly pointed out tonight, those business rates won't go far enough in cleaning the monumental mess that this application, if permitted, would have. And I think it would be in detriment to the voluntary groups that work their socks off in keeping that open to the general public, that when opening that site up, they would, in effect, be responsible for clearing out a well of rubbish. Chairman, the committee's decision tonight must be based on planning grounds, and despite no longer representing this ward, as I said earlier, I've received many calls from residents actually right across this borough about the concerns, and I think what we've heard tonight from the members that spoke, or the members of the public that spoke, is that this application needs to be rejected. It is important, however, to be frank from some of the comments that I've read online, to remind everyone that's watching this meeting is that it's not within this council's gift to call upon other restaurants chains to occupy this site. It is privately owned property, and the committee can only deal with what you have in front of you tonight. So we can't say we'd rather have a Nando's, we'd rather have a Millers and Carter's. And indeed, people have been quite proactive in pursuing certain types of restaurants there. But tonight we don't have that choice. We're here to look at one application, and that is to determine whether or not this particular circumstance is agreeable. And I put it to the committee that it's absolutely not. The officer report is robust, it is evidence-led and policy-led, and I think this committee tonight has clear grounds for refusal. And I ask on behalf of the residents that we represent right across this borough to do the right thing tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I've seen Councillor Beattie and Councillor Burden. Councillor Beattie.
All right, thank you, Chair. I'm speaking tonight also as Woodlands Ward Councillor and someone who's been listening to local concerns. I've had, especially when the application first went in, relentless emails, some phone calls, but just bombarded with emails. So it was quite hard work replying to them all really at the time. This site's not in a retail park, it's not a motorway service area, and it's not, as already been said, it's not in a town centre. It sits on Woodson Road beside residential homes, next to a hotel, directly by Woodlands Park, and far, far too close to a school. The former Beefeater was a traditional sit-down restaurant. It was a very different type of operation to what is proposed here. It's not simply a like-for-like refresh. The submitted plans show a much more intensive operation, large production, kitchen, dedicated delivery and courier service. It's clear the plan is to move the fleet of mopeds from the town centre to this venue. That is why the residents are so concerned. They are not imagining a problem. They're looking at the plans and asking how this site can be appropriate for the level and type of activity now being proposed. Members will know this area. Woodson Road is already busy. The surrounding streets are residential. Woodlands Park is one of our town's important urban green spaces used by children, families and older residents. The school issue is especially important. During my school days at Southfields, St George's was just a senior school. In conversation with the headmaster via email, I've learnt that pupils aged from 4 to 18 now go there, the start of mainstream compulsory education right through to the end, the whole school journey. I've heard from parents too and asked members to give real weight to that. This plan is a development far too close to a school, too close to the park and to where families live. Residents are worried about odour, noise, vehicle movements, delivery activity, litter, parking pressures. The list is endless. Well, certainly goes on. The Office of Recommendations gives members clear and sound planning reason to refuse. This application admits the change of use. It falls over immediately on that single point. McDonald's is a majority takeaway business, sui generis, of which I've been reading lots since this application went in. If this application fails today, I've no doubt they'll be back to try to overturn it or apply again. But the issue that it cannot get passed or resolve is St George's School. The issue is not whether the operator can trade somewhere in Gravesend. The issue is whether this location is acceptable. In my view, this is simply the wrong location. Going over again the same thing, the national policy, which I've tried to skip because it's been said several times. Well, I will say what I've said to many people in conversations before this meeting. If we're going to place this so close to a children's school environment, we might as well put it in the school canteen. This is not just somewhere children might pass occasionally. It could well become somewhere school children have their breakfast, lunch and dinner. And for those reasons, I support the officer's recommendation and ask for this application to be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burden.
Thank you. I've been listening very carefully to the comments made so far, and I am also one of the 2 members who can't vote on applications because both Shane and I are excluded from doing so. However, we can have opinions, and I've listened to the comments, I've listened and read the recommendations, particularly concerned about the issue from Kent County Council not wanting to back any highways objections, because whilst that runs true to form for Kent, it doesn't help us to refuse the application. Personally, I think it should be refused, and I would ask members to strongly consider refusal. But I would ask also that they consider working with the officers and with yourself, Chair, to strengthen the grounds for refusal. The 2 areas I'd like to see could be done was picking up on the point from the school about the changing diet coming down from government, the requirements around obesity, the requirements about good health, and the requirements about changing the bread content, the fat content, and that means a complete change of the diet being offered to children. That's being done specifically for a reason to get children to understand better health choice in food. I could have done with that myself when I was younger, to be frank with you. I'm still fighting the problem of dealing with it now. And probably never will win. But if we can get the children to understand better choice of health in food early in life, then we've got a better chance of having better healthy adults, reducing the cost for all. And what I'd ask is within that wording or a separate paragraph, actually make reference to the government guidance to schools on health. Because if we're saying one of our grounds of objection, principal ground of objection is paragraph 97, relates to health and food and obesity, we're not actually clarifying particularly well on that one, in my view, because I'm sure McDonald's will come back and say, actually, look at our menu. It's a healthy choice. We've got healthy options on the menu. They're all good things to eat. But they run in contrary to what the schools are being told. I like a chips or the chips. I like buns. I like the processed foods. Is that not a McDonald's in all but name? And I think that's the problem the schools are trying to address and deal with. And I think we need to highlight and clarify what we mean in our objection to the healthy option and the obesity issue that comes out of the wrong choice of food. Because if the schools are trying to do the right thing, if we can make reference to the government guidance on what is the healthy option, we clarify what we mean then in the objection, that they then need to overcome that if they then make an appeal. Because in making the appeal, they've got to demonstrate why their food choice options meets the government choice issues around obesity and food and children and school proximity, which is the large part of our objection point. So we need to give them a benchmark against which they need to prove they comply with. And if the government is moving against that type of food choice, and that's the guidance coming down to schools, then they can't show they can comply. So I think we need to boost that particular element up and provide that additional clarity. The second area relates to, funny enough, highways. Not because I think we all going to get any help from Ken, which we won't, but I was sitting here thinking about when I do drive up Clive Road and come past the McDonald's, past the Civic Centre, the number of times you see people in scooters, bikes, and whatever you're doing the delivery services just shoot out in front of you on a relatively slow, safe bit of road. Now, if you've got a bigger establishment like here, come onto Ruton Road, they've got a fast delivery, they've got to get there quick, who potentially are they going to knock down or get in the way of, either in a car, hurting themselves, or a pedestrian? And interestingly, as a council, we've all come together and put through the order recently at full council to bring in orders against the use of inconsiderate driving, illegal e-bikes, etc., and that which are predominantly used by delivery drivers. The fact the council's brought in the order, we've recognised the problem. And I think that is our highways argument, that if they're doing fast food delivery, the chances are they could use those sort of vehicles or options for their delivery people to come and provide quick service locally. And that's a highways risk. And because of the order, we may have a situation where we could be having to enforce that and remove the bikes and so on. And I'd love to crush some of them. I'm looking for something to crush. As members who know me, be it an illegal car or something, I will find one before our term comes to an end. But we need to do something on the highways aspect of it to say how potentially dangerous this site as well. I accept the point officers will make that we can't rely on Ken. I think we can rely on the fact that we've recognised as an authority the danger of that fast food delivery option, and use that as another grounds that they need to demonstrate why they can overcome it or not, as the case may be. Because I think just the 2 grounds for refusal, whilst they're good, may not be sufficient. If we bolster them up with more information and more detailed evidence as to what is the bar they need to get over, particularly on obesity and food, it may provide us a better defence and therefore a winning option at appeal if it was to come to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, I'm now looking at members of the committee. Any comments? I've seen Debs, I've seen, sorry, Lynn? So, Debs, you're coming. Yeah. Debs.
Thank you, Chair. Just to piggyback on the health options for school children and young people in the borough, we do actually have an initiative that we are trying to promote healthy living for our whole community, basically, but particularly for the younger children, because there is a high increase of obesity in children around about 6 years and under, which is quite significant in our borough. And I strongly support objecting to this application because I think it just will exacerbate the issues surrounding obesity in our community and especially in young children. And I know that as a council, we are trying to support healthy living for all of our residents. So yes, I will be opposing this. Thank you.
I've seen Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. Listen to this debate, and I will not be supporting this application personally on 3 issues. One is obviously obesity, and the second one would be no provisions for recycling. All these bits that you get your pay, probably the chips in it, you get your box with your whatever in it, and then there people wouldn't recycling, and we are pretty good at recycling it in Gravesham itself, and the litter on the highways. That litter will not stay where it's dropped, and it will inevitably go back into the school. You're going to have a bun, a burger, whatever it is, and those papers will eventually end up in the school grounds somewhere. So there's lots and lots of little extra issues that I can see which will come out of just those 3 little headings there. Thank you.
Thank you, then. Shazad, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the recycling, that wouldn't be an issue or a material consideration at committee. The business that operates, they do recycling, so that's not something that you could take into consideration. What I would suggest, Chair, is based on the commentary that's been made, there'll be a need to update the recommendation when we come to that point.
Thank you. I welcome that very much. Narendra.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, it's don't promote the healthy eating, and it doesn't promote the healthy environment either. From a personal experience, I tell you that I go to Woodland Park every day for my morning walk, and normally 2 employees from the Gravesham Borough Council, they spend about 10 to 15 minutes to clear the litter over there. After the weekend, it's about half an hour to 35 minutes. That I see every weekend. I see that, and if the McDonald's were there, then it will be every day more than 35 minutes or 45 minutes. So we refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I say that I came here with an open mind on this question? Very much so. I have to say that the first speaker convinced me entirely. It was one of the best speeches that I've heard from an outside applicant against an application. Brilliant. And that convinced me the arguments were unanswerable. So I also will therefore vote against this. Now, I really want to move to a vote, but Jordan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And thank you for indulging me. It's a very quick point, and I don't want to put words in Councillor Milner's mouth, but I absolutely agree with, I think, the point that she was trying to make was, yes, whilst McDonald's may have a recycling policy, Councillor Milner was talking not about the rubbish they're going to put into the bins, but actually rubbish that's dropped. And going back to Councillor Burden's point, I think we should be strengthening these conditions. And actually, it's against national planning policy to allow advertisements of fast food establishments within proximity of schools. And that's why I think Councillor Milner made an incredibly important point, because what she was suggesting was actually that when people dispose of this litter irresponsibly, that it will end up blowing into the school premises. And what we will see is a form of indirect advertising to young people that will entice them to go to that site. And therefore, I think we do need to add that as part of whether it's the litter. But Councillor Milner did make a good point, and I hope, Councillor Milner, I didn't put any words in your mouth.
Right. Okay. I think I've heard, and so has Shazad, all the arguments. I think we will be looking at some sort of redrafting of the arrangement, I think.
Thank you, Chair. So my proposal is to scrap what's before you on the screen and in the report and replace it with the following. The recommendation is that the head of planning be given delegated authority to refuse planning permission in consultation with the chair of planning committee to encompass the reasons for refusal considered by members of planning committee this evening, and that will address the relevant part of the NPPF that's stated on the screen before you. That's 97A, matters around obesity, not promoting healthy eating, littering, and potentially traffic highways, if that's agreeable to yourself.
Right. I'm now looking around for members of the committee. With that recommendation in mind, would anybody like to propose? Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. So shall we move to vote on that recommendation? Those in favour for members of the committee, please show. Sorry, in favour of the recommendation as proposed. Unanimous. Thank you. Can I?
I'd just like to say, Chair, now what we're going to have to eat.
Yeah. Can I thank all of you for restoring my faith in Planning Committee? We move to item 7, reports for information. There are none. Item 8, those applications delegated under powers by director, copies available. Any other business? I have no any other business which I wish to consider. There's no exclusion. There is no item B. Can I thank members of the general public for your indulgence, certainly today, and for what I think was a very constructive and well thought out debate. Thank you.